As far as whether the report on the pier was hidden or not, I can't say for certain, but I think it was very possible. I started trying to get information on the pier in 2016, and I wrote the emails to the Parks Department. And in my dealings with the city government, the Parks Department has always been the most responsive of all, and they were very helpful, told me things, and they were the ones that let me know there was a study on the pier already. In 2004, Moffett and Nichols did a very detailed report on the pier, and Sanders was in office at that time, and they made a whole list of recommendations. In the 2019 report, there is a line in there that says, and it was very unusual for a geotechnical company to make such a statement, but they basically said in one line, and I think they wanted to highlight it, the recommendations from the 2004 report have not been carried out, 15 years later. So all of Sanders' term and all of Faulconer's terms, they didn't do a damn thing to the pier that had been recommended by professional engineers. My name is Geoff Page, and I moved to Ocean Beach in 1980. I came to San Diego in '77. And so I've been here a long time. I love the ocean. My dad was in the Navy, so I've grown up next to the ocean my entire life. So in the course of my career in construction, the golden rule is almost always, instead of using existing material, use new. And the reasons for it are, there's a myriad of reasons for it. But for this pier, if you were going to rehabilitate it, you'd have to rehabilitate it from one end to the other. There are problems all along this pier everywhere you look. And part of the problem, if you look at the, I don't know if you got that in your shot, but that low spot in there, that all needs to be re-engineered and lifted up. If you were going to do rehabilitation, you have damaged piles that have to be probably completely replaced, the ones out on the end. There's pile damage all up and down the pier. There's deck damage. There's just everything. It's like the old car analogy. So when you look at it, you go, the cost of, people will estimate what it would take to rehabilitate the pier, but it's a guess. In my years of construction, I've seen a lot of projects that were rehabilitation projects, and the final cost is much higher than what the original estimate is, and the only reason is you can't really tell everything that's wrong until you actually get in there and start working on things, and then you find out, oh, it's like bad plumbing, you know, now I got to do the next joint, now I got to go further back. I think Del Monte is a good idea only because I'm a surfer, and I think where they placed the pier originally was a crime. So Del Monte is about 3 blocks, I think, roughly south of where the pier is now. And so some of the people have said, well, if we move it there, it's going to be away from downtown and people are going to have to walk to it. But there is an area along the water. It could be improved, so that walkway could take you right there. And it's only a few blocks from the downtown. So it's south of the pier about 3 blocks. So it's not that big of a difference. I love the pier. The pier is wonderful. But if you moved it over to Del Monte, it would solve basically 2 things. It would open up the waterfront here for surfing and anything else. And then on top of that, the fishing would probably be better in Del Monte. Del Monte sits right over top of the whole reef. Where the pier sits now, basically the north side is more sand than anything else. There is reef, but most of the reef is on the south side of the pier. And so if you moved it to Del Monte, it would benefit the fishermen, and it would also benefit the surfers. Now, one of the people that talk about building it in the same place, with the kind of things that you could do for redesigning the pier, you could solve the surfing problem because they can widen the bays underneath the pier now. So they were originally about 30 feet. And a couple of engineers have told me with the new materials and designs today, you could make it 60 feet, which would make shooting a pier a lot less gnarly. No matter where they place the pier, there will be the cost of, if they move it to Del Monte, they have to demolish this pier. But if they're going to build a new pier, they're going to have to demolish this pier anyway. And so they may want to build it in the same location, and the reasons for that are many, but mainly having to do with environmental and permitting. It may be simpler to put it in a similar footprint than moving it all the way over to Del Monte. So that would be the only advantage to not moving the pier. The cost that the engineers put in their report of $60 million was just construction. You could probably double that figure of what it would cost for permitting, for environmental, for management, especially if you let the city of San Diego manage it. And the city of San Diego should not be managing this rebuild. Keeping the city out of it is important to me because I know how badly they handle things. But the fact of the matter is that the pier is for the entire county. I've spent years jogging to the end of that pier and back, and I have seen all the types of people that use it. And they're not only from all parts of the city of San Diego, they're from all parts of the county. So I think the entire county needs to be part of the funding effort. So when the city says they don't have any money, we all know that's probably true. They probably have some. Have some, Chula Vista, National City, everybody else at El Cajon, La Mesa, these people all come out and use this pier. So if we could get the whole county, and including the county government, to get in on the funding, then it's much more doable. I mean, the city's budget itself is, I think, $1 billion. The county, I don't know what it is, but it's got to be much more than that. So there's money out there. Advice to how to get it moving, I think, is, I don't think I'm an expert on that. What I can say is they've formed a committee right now. That's a start. There are some people that are very interested, and one of them is the son of the builder, Ralph Tessier. I think I said his name right. And he's very interested. He lives up in Talmadge. And so we just got to get the rest of the county interested in it and say, okay, get the publicity out there so that everybody gets interested in it. This committee that's being set up here is all Ocean Beach Merchants Association, Planning Board, and the Town Council. They could sort of help the effort right here, sort of organize it, but I personally don't want everybody to think this is an OB pier or a Point Loma pier. I've spent enough time in San Diego to know that attitudes about OB and Point Loma vary greatly across the city. So I think you just need to get everybody involved and say, no, it's not OB's pier, it's San Diego's pier. And get the fundraising ideas started. And there's people that are already doing that. There's some folks that know how to get federal money, how to get state money, things like that. The money is the biggest issue. And the design can follow, but everybody's got to get together and maybe start with this committee to try to generate the funding for the thing. I think it was the end of 2020. I just resent my PIER request exactly the same as I did the first time, and they coughed up the report. I don't know why. I think it's possible, my hope is that there was some good soul down there at the city that said, look, we got to let the people know what's going on, and let's give it to this guy. If the city had listened to the 2004 Moffitt and Nichols report, it had extensive recommendations in there for repairs. It included the piles that are out there now that have been closed off. That part of the pier, they reported on those piles then, and they recommended work be done then. Since nothing ever happened, now we have a closed pier. And they're probably going to have to replace the piles rather than repair them because they didn't do anything for 15 years. So if they had followed what Moffitt and Nichols said, the pier would probably still be open and may have had a few more years of life than it does now. So when I would jog down the pier in the last couple of years, I started noticing fishermen leaving a lot of monofilament all over the deck, which everybody knows is harmful to the animals. Because I was picking that up, I started noticing the problems with the stanchions along the side of the pier, and I noticed that the concrete was broken away, the rebar was rusted, and I thought, wait a minute, this is a lot worse damage than I ever noticed before. So I started looking at the rest of it. This pier has been here a long time, and I've been out on it many, 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 many times, and I have seen people enjoy this pier. Families are out there. There are a lot of folks out there who fish the pier to eat. They catch a lot of these little mackerels and they take them all home and they eat them. There's people that come out here to socialize, probably live in areas where they don't have great parks or places. They love coming out here. This pier is it's a jewel and it really should be saved. So I care about it because I live here. And part of the reason I care about it is the previous administration did such a terrible job of dealing with this pier that to me it's like, now is the time to get these current people off the dime, or at least make them aware that they don't want to be added to this list of Jerry Sanders and Kevin Faulconer. They don't want to be looking like that.